voice and sing to earth in heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicings rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as a rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new days begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
We shall Thank you, everyone, for taking your time to be here this morning. Welcome to this very special event where you, young people who are in the high schools of the Newark Board of Education, will have the opportunity to engage in conversation with our mayor, with Mayor Raz J. Baraka. And just to let you know kind of how and why you're here, there is a literacy coalition called hashtag Newark Reads. Part of that literacy coalition is the Mayor's Book Club. We have engaged with Newark Public Schools, with the Newark Public Library, the general public of Newark, and other education entities to bring book selections from the Mayor's Book Club. We have, so far, we have done the book Americana, the book The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde. Now we are doing, talking about the autobiography of Malcolm X. Audible, who is one of our great partners this year, engaged in releasing that book as their release for this year, marking the 95th birthday of Malcolm X. And at the end of this program, I will be letting you know what our new book selection is that will be available in the Newark Public Library. Hashtag Newark Reads is supported by, and the Mayor's Book Club, supported by so many partners. Audible, United Way, Newark Board of Education, Panasonic, the Newark Public Library, Victoria Foundation, Rutgers, NCLC, New Jersey Children's Foundation, and I may be in trouble for forgetting someone, but please forgive me for that. So before I pass the baton, I just want everyone to know, be aware that we will not be using the chat just to communicate today, except for putting questions in the chat. During the conversation with the mayor and the students on the panel, everyone who is viewing will have the opportunity to put questions in the chat, and at the end of their conversation, we will ask as many of those questions, we will put those on the floor as possible. Last little housekeeping thing is you have the option from where you sit to turn to speaker view, and if you do that, then you won't be looking at everyone, but you will really have a close-up view of the particular person who is speaking at that time. So at this time, I want to bring greetings from Superintendent Leon. I'm sure that all of the students know Superintendent Leon. I would simply say that Superintendent Leon and all of his administrative staff are wonderful partners to the mayor and to the Mayor's Book Club, and that we love that we are able to work so closely together, and we want to continue that in the future. And so I now introduce you to your superintendent, our superintendent, Roger Leon.
Hey, good morning, everybody. To the mayor, obviously, we're extremely excited about this fireside chat with you this morning. I always have an incredible opportunity whenever the mayor and I are in a venue that Ms. Baskerville leads to always forget to acknowledge her. So I wanted to take this opportunity to recognize the incredible work that you have done, the work that Monique does, and a big thank you to all of the staff members responsible for this incredible work that we do collaboratively together. On our side, I want to thank the Assistant Superintendent of the high schools, Dr. Ortiz, obviously Courtney Johnson, the high school leadership team, and all of the high school staff that are joining us. As all of the students are aware, the mayor and I are kids from the city, so I find it kind of exciting that two kids of the city are leading the city and the school system. And this conversation this morning is with the future leaders of our great city. I want the students to know how proud I am of all of you. You inspire me every single day. There are certain things that, you know, when I think about you all that that come to mind, and I really don't know what I would be doing if I were a high school student today. Look at everything that you've lived, from the footsteps of September 11th to a state-operated school district for over 25 years during your whole entire lifetimes, with the exception of the last couple of years. this global pandemic, which we can't leave that, obviously, elephant hiding from this conversation. The civil unrest in pursuit of justice that we witnessed during the spring and the summer, and obviously the injustices that we have seen towards the foundation and framework of this country just a couple of weeks ago. I am so proud of you for having endured. And I share with you, and I probably swear to you that I do not know of many of adults who would have been able to have stood as tall, having lived everything that you have lived. But I do know that better days are to come. One of the things that guarantees that for me is the incredible work that our mayor has, in fact, been doing during this global pandemic. Since March 15th, he has dedicated every hour of every day, and I have stood in witnesses and meetings with him every morning and every evening of this important work. And I'm just so proud of him. Our mayor has actually helped save lives in our city, and I am eternally grateful to him. Monique Jones does absolutely incredible work throughout our city and with our youth. And I take this opportunity to turn the microphone over to Monique Jones at this time.
Good morning, Mayor Baraka, and good morning to all the participating students. Thank you for inviting me to represent Audible's Global Center for Urban Development to attend this very engaging and thoughtful discussion. At Audible, we understand the importance of education-based initiatives, and we believe strongly in Newark students. Through our continued support of hashtag Newark Reads and the Mayor's Book Club, we hope every student will continue to immerse themselves and find inspiration. Echoing Superintendent Leone earlier, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that we know how hard it is to be a student during COVID, and we're proud of you for charting through this new course during an unknown time. I believe we grow from finding refuge in great literature, and now more than ever, stories like the one discussed today open the door to places we never knew existed. Please continue to stay safe, and thanks again for the opportunity.
Ask the student panelists to now introduce themselves. I don't happen to have the list of what that order is, so I am going to rely on the student panelists to please, in whatever order you have planned or works best, to please introduce yourselves, to simply give your name, your grade, and your school. So I now turn it over to our student panelists from our Newark Board of Education high schools.
Hi everybody, my name is Elliot Umpaful. I'm in the sophomore year, 10th grade, and I go to school at Wick High School.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Shariah Marsden, and I am a freshman, so 9th grade at Bard High School Early College.
Good morning. My name is Aisha Jimakuku. I am in 10th grade at Weekwood High School.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ella Jones. I'm a sophomore at University High School.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Diamond Percy, and I'm a sophomore at Malcolm X Shabazz.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Najwania Hemmings. I'm a freshman at Bard High School.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Kashay Prince from Shabazz High School.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Janasia Scott from University High School.
Good morning, everyone. I'm in the 10th grade and I go to Central High School. My name is Deborah Dopey.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jalen Lyle and I am a 10th grader at Central High School.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Souza. I'm from Eastside High School and I'm in 9th grade.
Good morning, I am Sarai Wade and I go to Eastside High School.
Good morning, my name is Shandon Little and I'm a 10th grader at Newark Evening.
Is there anyone else who hasn't introduced themselves yet? Okay, hearing none, thank you, students, for being brave and assertive and willing to engage in this conversation with Mayor Baraka. I'm so happy that we have representation from Newark Evening High School, which is one of the hidden treasures in Newark, New Jersey. Very unique program. Not everywhere offers education to adults, and Newark does. So that's a very important thing for our city. And I also neglected to thank the students from Arts High School for that wonderful presentation that we had that opened our program. I know you weren't expecting that. You were probably expecting to come on with a traditional welcome, but you know, we like to really showcase the talent that's in Newark and really catch your attention in the beginning. And so here at this point, I'm going to introduce our mayor, Mayor Baraka, who needs no introduction to many. As the conversation goes on with Mayor Baraka and the students, feel free to put your questions in the chat. Viewers, you won't see the questions, but I will see the questions. And as I said before, we'll take some time, hopefully at the end, to be able to address your questions. You will have young people, you will have about 45 minutes approximately in conversation with Mayor Baraka. And so now, without further ado, I introduce Mayor Raz Baraka, who, as you probably know, was born, raised in Newark, graduated from Newark High School, went on through the public school system to be a principal in Newark before he was elected mayor in 2014. So obviously education is his passion, and the Mayor's Book Club was his idea that we were able to bring to fruition. Without further ado, Mayor Raz Baraka.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So just want to jump right in, actually, and thank all of you for thinking it not robbery to be a part of this discussion, and all of the advisors and superintendent and everybody from Newark Public Schools who helped make this happen. I want to thank Tony Baskerville Richardson for continuing to do this. This is important. This book club is incredibly important to me, and we try to read books that, we don't usually come across as often as we probably should. Provocative books that get you to think and engage in subjects and topics that I think we probably should be talking about more. Just like from the beginning, somebody might tell me just how they felt about this book. Like how did you feel about this book after you read it? What kind of emotions did it elicit from you?
When I first read this book, my emotions were all over the place because I have different standpoints on different things. Right. So when I was reading it, his autobiography, I agree with some things, I disagree with some things. It was just like, certain points he made that I agree with, and different points that he made that I didn't agree with. But altogether, it was just like a lot of triggering emotions during this book.
Triggering, that's an interesting word. Anybody else?
I think it gives like a more different perspective, a more in-depth perspective to his life and what he went through. And like, it gave a little bit more history on like certain things. It had different subjects too. Like there was a part that had to do with cosmetology. There was a part that had to do with living and dying. So I think it played with a lot of emotions per se, from like the sad parts to the happy parts to the why would you do that parts. And so yeah, I think it messed with a lot of emotions. It wasn't one straightforward.
Excellent. Last one, somebody jump in.
I felt how you doing, Mr. Rosbaraka?
How are you, sir?
I'm good. I felt reading this book that it enlightened me kind of, because this wasn't anyone's old opinion on how he felt. This is from his mouth, how he felt and what he felt at that time period.
That's good that you said at that time period, because this really goes through a span of his almost his childhood to adulthood, his entire life. Did this make any of you well, I like the word enlightened. Did you learn more about Malcolm X than you had previously known before you read this book?
I did. I learned a little bit more, and I think it. I liked it also because it showed me that we take a lot of things for granted. Because living back in those days, a lot of us probably would have been like not ready for all the stuff that he went through. So I think it was dope to really have a more in-depth from his mouth, not from anybody else's mouth, way of saying it. And I like the metaphors that he used to allude to certain points and to get his point across. The words, some of the words that he used, like, yeah, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he always made a point, like he never tried to, I like that he never tried to like sugarcoat it. He went straight to his point. Like,
right.
That's it.
He was definitely known for that. He didn't beat around the bush. Anybody else who hasn't spoken yet want to jump in here? Tell me. Yes.
Like if someone came up to me and they asked me or they told me about Malcolm X, and me, a person who doesn't know who Malcolm X is, and they told me that he was like this extremist, and between him and Dr. Martin Luther King would be better. But like the thing about this book is that it shows like all his hardships that he went through and how he used that as a stepping stone to build himself up. And like if someone was to tell me how do I feel about Malcolm X in the end, I would say I feel like the way how he carried himself was like pretty like inspiring.
That's good. Deborah, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say I liked how the book, like it was like he was talking to us. It wasn't in third person, and it was like we were hearing his life from his own mouth. And I liked how he was talking to us and how he was explaining his life and how he was talking about the hardships and everything that he went through in his life. And it was like it was him talking to us, and I like that a lot.
Right. Anybody want to say how Malcolm's early life kind of helped to dictate what he felt later on?
Well, during his early life, he went through a lot, being a younger African American male in the times that he grew up in. So he went through a lot of things like different hardships and stuff like around the family and people he encountered. So that helped like dictate what his future was and what his standpoint on life was going to be and how he was going to handle and present himself to others and how he was going to stand up for what he believed in the future.
What about Malcolm as Detroit Red? Somebody want to talk about Detroit Red for me? Before we get into this other stuff, I want to hear about Detroit Red and how that reminds you of some of the people you know.
I don't know what Detroit Red is, but I was gonna say before you brought that up that the way his father treated him about between the light skin thing, like how he was the lightest kid and this thing, also gave him like a different point of view, and how his mother disagreed with how the father was treating him more higher because he was light skinned than the other one. It kind of showed him like a different perspective of how people look at different shades of black.
That's, and I think that had a lot to do with. So, does anybody know before I address that? Anybody know who Detroit Red is? What I'm saying when I say Detroit Red,
Yeah.
who is that?
Yeah.
So that's Detroit Red was one of the many identities that Malcolm took on in his life. In my opinion, it was at the height of his ignorance, because at that point he was not yet enlightened to who he was.
Why do you say it was at the height of his ignorance?
Because at that time he wanted to. At that time, black people were saw as less, and black men especially. And so you could see in his actions, he didn't value himself as he did when he was Malcolm X or Malik Al-Shabazz.
Right. The Detroit Red was the criminal life.
Yeah,
right?
I agree with that totally, because he was at a point in his life when he like lowered his own value, so he wasn't really like his own like his self, because when he was like younger, he was like set on like his goals and like he was really like positive, motivated. But then when he was like in that point of his life as a Detroit Red, he wasn't really like pushing for his goals. He was just like, how do you say it? How do I say it? Like basically he was just like letting people's words like actually like affect him, and like what they were saying was becoming true. He wasn't like defying the odds. Instead of before he would. He was giving in, just folding. Basically.
I would like to add on, and I agree with Patrick. Detroit Red was him just hustling to no end point. Which, like, he had no goal at that time. It was just to make money and live fast.
Right. Do you think that's what a lot of young folks out here get involved in?
I feel that a lot of young folks are sometimes left for no choice due to the effects of the Reagan due to the effects of Reagan when he was funding his coups in South America and was funneling drugs into the Black community.
I love it. This one here, boy, you don't hear all type of stuff.
All right. I think that when his teacher, because there's a part in the book where it says he said he wanted to be a lawyer or something in school because he was a well-loved kid, and when his teacher told him no because of his race, I think that's what caused him to be like, well, she's not. I realized that she might not be lying, and then it caused him to turn into that Detroit Red personality, but that probably wasn't his original personality.
So you think the teacher in his life had an impact on him going negative?
Partially. I think there's more to the story, like some of the jobs they were getting. I remember he had one point where he hooked up with like a white woman, and I think he got beat down by a cop or something, and and some of the stuff he was doing with like his side partner. I think that also like contributed, because everybody wants to fit in. So.
Everybody wants to fit in.
I think that was the lowest point of his life, because when he became Detroit Red, he really didn't care about himself anymore. He didn't care about his life. He just wanted to do what he wanted to do. He wanted to hustle. He wanted to smoke. He wanted to drink. He made enemies. He had a lot of targets on his back, and that wasn't good because he didn't care about his life anymore. He just wanted to end it, I guess.
He wanted to end it. Or he thought he wasn't going to live long. Right? Gregory, what you think about this stuff that they talking about? Sounds crazy?
I definitely do agree that it does sound very crazy, all that stuff he did, like hustling, like all is very it's a very significant change in his life at that time, because he was very discouraged, you could say. He didn't care for his life anymore. So like, I definitely do agree, all this is very crazy. It does sound crazy. It doesn't even sound real.
Yeah, I think at that point, his whole life was like, he was at the rock bottom. Like, he wanted to just go all in. If he's gonna die, just go like all in. No
What
matter
saved Malcolm's life, Elliot? What saved his life?
Patience.
I can't hear you.
Patience.
Patience, you said?
Yeah, like he at that point when the police that guy rushed in, he could have shoot somebody or like tried to rush in, and he would have gotten himself shot. But like at that point, he just didn't know what was going to happen, so he just stood there for them to do whatever they want.
So let me get to this part. After all of the things that happened, Malcolm wound up in jail, right? Detroit Red. Let me say he wound up in jail. He was locked up. What do you think happened to him to help him to change his life?
There was somebody in the prison. I don't remember who it was that helped him change his life, especially in the movie. He like told him about Muslim and taught him the teachings of Muslim, made him read the dictionary, stuff like that. So I think that helped him really look at it and be like, I was a smart kid who said I can't be a smart kid anymore. And like, I think being like, he went through what he went through with the cops, he realized like, well, somebody got to say something, somebody got to do something, and that's where he got the whole mentality. Well, if y'all can hit us, why can't we hit you?
Kashay, that's how you say your name, right, Kashay? Miss Prince, how are you? Good.
I'm fine. How are you?
Great. Just want to go a little deeper about Malcolm, how Detroit Red, how his life changed, what you think saved him. Like just thinking about the stuff he went through and what he was dealing with in jail. Like, what do you think was his turning point?
Okay, I think at that point when he was in jail, just that man talking to him, I don't know. I thought the man who was talking to him was the one who changed his mind. Well, thinking back at it, I thought that's what helped him at one point. But you really think about it, some people just change based on what they see in life.
Mm-hmm. What they see.
Yeah.
Anybody want to help out? Like, just really get into Malcolm's head.
I would like to.
Well, to piggyback off of what she has said, I think like when he had got locked up in prison, he had came to a realization like there was more to life, there was more to fight for. So like when he was locked up and he got those teachings from the person in prison, and he actually had to go through that. He really had to sit there and think about how he was gonna live life from that point on and what he was gonna do, change, and what he was gonna do to like push himself and not just act how he was acting before. Like when he had got locked up, like I think something in him had changed and it was different for him.
Okay.
What
I
believe that changed Malcolm and saved his life was education. Education became elevation for him. Because in my opinion, like I said, he was different at that point. He wasn't very much educated due to the way that the school system had treated him as a young man.
I do disagree with the part that people are saying that going to jail changed his life, because if you notice that when he was in jail, they called him Satan because he was acting out, he still fought the prison guards, he was still the same way he was before jail. The person who really changed his life to me was Bimby. Once he met Bimby, Bimby taught him so much more and really taught him how to become a better person. Because I feel like without Bimby in his life, he would have still been known as Satan. He would have still had that Detroit Red mentality. Once he talked to Bimby, he noticed that, okay, there's so much more to life, and this man has showed me that. And after he met Bimby, that's when he started reading the dictionary. He started writing letters to Elijah Muhammad. Bimby really changed his life. I don't think that you can just say that going to jail completely changed his life, because he was still acting out. He still had the Detroit Red mentality. Bimby was specifically that one part of jail that really turned his mentality and turned his life around.
That person. And Bimby introduced them to learning and education as that's good.
Yes, that was what I was going to say. Education, Bimby taught him to read more books, and that is when he came to his consciousness that there is more to life, not just die and go. There is more to life than he looked at it. He looked at life differently when Bimby came into his life, teaching him education.
So he looked at life differently. Let's start there so we get into these questions. He began to see life differently. So I got two points here that I like you to help me with. How does he begin to see life, and what in his mind explains why he's in jail? How did he get there?
I would like to speak on the how did his life change. So
Right.
I think one extremely important point about how his life changed is how his view on religion changed. Once he went to Mecca, he's seen how white people were there and they weren't disrespectful to black people, or they didn't treat black people like they were below anybody else. So that definitely changed his view on religion, because after that, I kind of remember exactly what he said. He said that I see how white people can actually treat black people, because before that, he thought that Christianity was the reason that white people hated black people. He thought that white men were the devil. And after he goes to Mecca, he can clearly see, he's like, okay, it's not all white people that are actually the devil. It's those certain white people who are influenced by what happened those years ago and who are influenced by the negative opinions of America. And once his religion changed, I feel like so much about him just improved drastically.
Yes, that's a great point. You jumped over a whole bunch of things, and that's excellent, actually. But so let's go back a little bit. He said you said he thought white people were the devil. Where did he get this? Why do you think that resonated with him? That he believed that he felt that?
Because I think it resonated with him because remember the white people took him from his mother and put her in a mental facility and gave him to foster care. And then the white men killed his father.
Yeah.
And then they wouldn't give her the insurance money. So that caused them to live in poverty a little bit more than what they already were.
Okay. Somebody else?
Yeah, I'll go more. As when he was young, he went through a lot of stuff with his race, but I don't think he really was conscious about what was happening around him, like the difference between white and black and stuff. He didn't really know what was actually going on. He was all thinking about how to impress his friends and how to fit in his society. He didn't really think about what was really going on until he went to jail, and then he read Elisha Muhammad told him the white people are the devil. That was when he came to his consciousness. He started thinking about how the white people treated him when he was young and stuff. Before he actually realized that throughout his whole life, he wasn't really seeing what was actually going on. He was thinking about his friends and how to survive, not thinking about his race and what was going on before he actually came to his consciousness.
That's an amazing point.
I agree, but I also disagree. I think that the point where, like you said, he's being conscious towards how how blacks are treated by whites. I think that was the point where he was caught. Before he went to jail, he was caught with the lady, the white lady that he was having and doing stealing with. I think when he realized that because of his appearance and that he's a black man, that's the reason why they are going to that was the reason why they were that was the reason why they were going to arrest him, and not because of his crime. They were going to arrest him because he was seen with a white woman and probably doing something towards her because of this color of his skin, right? And I also think that all of his metaphors that he used to say that to whites the black are inferior and that they are superior to blacks. The perfect metaphor that he used for that was he talked about the Holocaust and how Jews, when the time around Hitler, they helped and supported Hitler at that time before they were met with the terrible, devastating thing of the Holocaust. And I think that was a perfect metaphor to say that black people can help help white people as much as they want to, but at the point where they can always turn back on us and just use all of our hard work to build this country up to turn against us and still act as if they are superior towards us and that they are above us no matter what.
I think I agree with her, but I think also what plays a part in how the whites look at us is the fact that it's not everybody, but we let the ones who choose to do wrong define who we actually are in reality when there's some real hardworking people who are really dope. We should let them define a black person, not the ones who choose to do wrong. So they look at the ones who choose to do wrong and think everybody's gonna do wrong.
That's a good point. Jaden, I saw you over there. You wanted to say something to this?
What was your question again? Why did Malcolm perceive white people as the devil?
Yeah.
I could say that Malcolm perceived white people as the devil from it. I would say it started from the death of his father, because the Black Legion, which was a KKK sect or is a KKK sect, killed his father.
Right.
And then, as my other peers said, his family was basically ripped apart by the system. And as a Black man at that time, there wasn't any lifelines you could hold on to, really. If you didn't have new family or any connections, you were basically on your own. And also, that point of view that white people are the devil came from a lot from Elijah Muhammad's teachings, which weren't the true teachings of Islam.
Right. So we can get into that too. We that's a whole nother discussion. Deborah, you look like you wanted to say something up there.
I wanted to say that I think he started to believe that white people are the devil when they first burned his house down and he had to move. And after that, when his dad died and his mom got institutionalized, I think that's when he really started to believe that white people are the devil. And Elijah Muhammad's teachings further encouraged his thoughts about that until he went to Mecca.
I don't agree with both of you. You think those days when they burned down their house and uh when
his father
died, those days he wasn't really thinking, because he continued to live with white people throughout his life, like the Johannes and Miss Wellens, and he really liked living with them. And some of his friends even used him for girls, because they would let Malcolm go talk to them, and they would just be like they are holding the those days Malcolm really didn't realize what they were doing, like they were using him or something. He thought they loved him and some things. They would call him the N-word in school and stuff, and he didn't take any offense about it. So those days he wasn't really conscious about what was actually going on. Like they were thinking of him as a bad person or anything. Because in the Swelling's house, mascot, they think about him as mascot. They will talk about bad about black people in front of him, and he will like he was okay because he thought it was like normal thing for people to do. Like they were just making a conversation. He didn't really wasn't really like viewing like going outside the box, thinking they looked down on him. He thought they were his friends, and he really liked living with the white people and stuff. Before when he went to jail, and then when he heard the word of like the white people are the devil, that was when he came to his consciousness. He started thinking about what happened in his life. He believed it easily. He used some word about it, like it's easy to believe when a sinner is something like that. That was when he actually realized what was actually going on around him. So that was he easily believed because he has went through it, and he didn't even realize before he heard that white people are the devils.
I forgot to
That's a great analysis, man. And you want to say something? What's
Yes,
that?
I agree with Elliot, because when he was little, he still had that innocent mind. I mean, he knew that the white people were doing him bad to his father and broke up his family, but he wasn't really conscious about the racism around him. When he went to jail and Elijah Muhammad had, gave him examples and evidences of what white people were doing to blacks, that kind of opened his mind and made him think back that they were doing him wrong, they were being racist to him and his family.
That's good way to lay that. That was a great analysis.
I also agree with that because while he was in jail, he was rather young, and they say it's scientifically proven that the adolescent mind is not fully grown while you're still in your 20s to like 25 or 26. So I think that also manipulated him and his thoughts to like really sit there and believe that the white people were bad when in reality it was just some or most, and there was still that percentage that was like we're all equal. basic.
I just want to tell you, I know some people over 40 whose mind is not developed yet. So.
Well, maybe they got health problems or something happened with their parents to play the part.
So I know in school we taught a lot about Martin Luther King, right? Everybody know. Do you think that the school system kind of teaches us more Martin Luther King than Malcolm X on purpose, or it just happens that way?
I think they do.
That the school system did in fact glorify Martin Luther King's life, and they didn't really speak that much about Malcolm X, because when they did speak of Malcolm X, the main thing they taught us was that he was violent, that he believed that what black people and white people need to be segregated. The main difference between the two that schools taught us were that Malcolm X was violent, Martin Luther King wasn't. And that's really not true, because their global consciousness led them to have the same ideology. They're pretty much the same person, just with mirrored lives. I do feel like they didn't talk that much about Malcolm X because he went through so much growing up. Like, he lived in a prostitute house, he sold drugs, he did cocaine, he was involved in a whole bunch of other stuff. And Martin Luther King, I don't want to say he wasn't and downplay the events in his life, but he didn't go through as much as Malcolm X did. And I feel like they talk mainly about Martin Luther King because of that fact, and also because he wasn't for violence, and he was a really nice person, and he didn't really like the stuff that Malcolm X did, talking about if they hit us, we should hit them back, or we should fight them. Martin Luther King, he didn't do that. He was more so of a, I don't agree with violence. The way to getting freedom and being one with the people isn't violence. And I feel like schools more prefer Martin Luther King over Malcolm X because of the fact that he is not pro-violence.
Yeah, I agree with what you were saying. I feel like schools where they're pushing the peaceful aspect of it. Like when it came to Malcolm X and his approach on things, he more so like took the violent actions and violent approach. Whereas Martin Luther King wasn't for really violence, he was more for peaceful and talking and all of that. And schools don't want to project them violent actions onto us as young students, because we're more vulnerable to and subjected to certain things. So when it comes to teaching us about history, they wanna make it as simple and as peaceful as possible. So like when we get older, we won't have that violence is the answer to everything aspect or thought process.
Well, I think it just depends on the school because I didn't go to school up here for how long? I don't know. I didn't go to school up here. I went to school in Florida, and the school I went to was predominantly white. So when it came down to history, we were more learning about George Washington and stuff than we were really looking into the Malcolm X and stuff. Not to be like racist or anything or like to say anything about the school, but I think it all just depends on like the school you go to, because when I was in high school and I was taking history, we were not learning about that type of stuff. We were learning about different stuff. And I think some of the events that they had back then that they were teaching us, they forgot a lot of important key details. Like in the Boston Massacre, they said the first person, I don't know who was the first person to die, but the true event was the first person to die was a black person. Nobody really celebrates him. He was the peacemaker, basically, within the actual breakdown of the Boston Massacre.
Also,
So
I would like
I
to
think
add.
there's a lot of figures in
One second.
history that have not been celebrated as Black people because we leave them out of the textbooks, out of certain textbooks.
Okay. For me, for the longest, I've always thought as Malcolm as like a very violent person because you know the school had portrayed Malcolm as a devil, and he just wanted to be a devil because he could. I never actually got the understanding and dig deep into why he was doing that and what his mindset was. It was just that teaching of he's just violent. He just wanted to, fight back. But like Malcolm is a very misunderstood person. I feel like he wasn't violent. He just wasn't gonna stand down for his people to get hurt. Like if they brought his understanding was if they brought violence, I'm not just gonna sit back and watch my people get hurt or me get hurt. I'm going to fight back if it's needed.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think so. Malcolm is misunderstood like big time. Like people think of him as violence, but I think it's just the how he turned on the hustling light on at a young age. Like it's hard to turn back to normal person. He didn't really have a normal life like Dr. King. Throughout his life, he has to defend for himself and do stuff. So he wasn't really the kind who would sit down and wait for miracle to happen. He just go like meet the miracle in a way. So he wasn't really a violent person. He was just defending himself and his family.
I think that's true, but I also think that it also depends on like the area you're in too, because there's certain areas where nobody really sits here and brings up Black history. They bring up Valentine's Day, homecomings, and so I think it just depends on like who you're around, the areas that you're in, and what the education is in that area. And I feel like because up here is predominantly African American, Latina, all those races, that's why I don't really see when we see February, we don't really see what you call it, Valentine's Day. We see Black History Month. We see Frederick Douglass, Madam C.J. Walker. That's what we see. But where I'm from New York, but where I primarily went to school at, that's not what we thought. We didn't talk about Black History Month like that. So I think it played a huge difference in where you're living and the education that you get.
I do feel like that is a part of an entirely different problem. I mean, it still relates, but I feel like that's a much bigger problem because having different school districts not teach Black history just because they decided they don't want to is definitely extremely bad. And I do feel like they should be doing that. And I feel like that's such a bigger problem because not only are they not teaching about Malcolm X and they're just teaching about Martin Luther King, they're completely disregarding Black history altogether. And being that they're not even teaching about what schools would teach, like the peaceful approach or the approach where they don't encourage violence, they're just completely disregarding everything is definitely so much worse than just talking about the peaceful approach to wanting freedom than the violent approach.
And that's why a lot of kids don't have, especially younger kids, don't have that sense of knowledge of their Black heritage.
So do you believe if we taught more, relevant cultural history, African American history, that it would impact kids the same way it impacted Detroit Red?
Well, I don't think
No.
the impact is because, the same way it impacted Detroit Red, because of the simple fact our generation now is not really, I don't want to say into that, but like if some kids might be more open-minded to learning it and stuff like that, but
was Detroit? I don't want to jump in, stop you, but look, let's think about Detroit Red. Was he into that?
Well, no, not necessarily. He was more.
I mean, his guy, they called him what they said. They called him in prison. What they call him?
They called him Satan.
Satan, Jesus.
I do feel like Malcolm X had such that he allowed the school teachings to influence him so much because he had also experienced it firsthand. His house was burned down by white people. His father was killed by the KKK. His family was split up by white people. And yeah, that happened when he was young. But that stuff affects your mental health. That sticks with you forever. You're never going to forget that your father was assassinated by the KKK. You're never going to forget that your house was burned down by white people. That's always going to be stuck with you no matter how much you grow up. You're always going to memorize that. And I do feel like when he got older, those images and those situations were still burned into his mind, along with the different stuff that he's experiencing. So I do feel like if you were to teach it to kids during this time, the unhidden history, that it wouldn't influence them as much as it influenced Malcolm X, because they haven't experienced as much stuff as he did. And I'm not saying that they haven't experienced some stuff, because I know for a fact that some people have, but I just feel like Malcolm X took it a completely different way because of the experiences and the situations that he went through.
I agree. And then, like, if people or students who did go through something like that, or they have experienced something similar to that, if they read about how Malcolm X was this, like, bad guy and drugs and all this other stuff, went to jail and changed and reformed himself into someone better and someone who's of knowledge, then that could probably, like, encourage them to be like, I might be at a bad place right now, but if I keep on, like, learning and just keep sticking with my knowledge as my best friend, then yeah, I can get out of this tough spot where I am.
I feel like
Society also plays a part in how we think and look at ourselves, because society is not one straight nice thing. Society deems you unfit if you don't look like a certain person. Society tells you that you have to be built like this. Society doesn't let you be different and let you be yourself. So I think society plays a big role in how we think mentally, and also the reoccurring events that keep happening. Like we do still have a lot of work to go, but police brutality was like a real big problem. But I think this year it got more attention than it ever really actually did. Set aside from the whole Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and the Emmett Till thing, I think now everybody's like kind of looking at the eye opener and being like, we got to do something. So now more people are like choosing to get that education, to get empowered, to have a say. And I think a lot of other people who are encouraging them to get that power and to get involved and to vote and to go do this stuff is contributing to that hope that we need to let us know, like, we do have some sort of power in this country. We need to use it. We need to let them know, like, we will not be silenced. You will not kill us off. We're going to be here forever.
To go back to the question,
I think it depends, because there is different point of views in society. Like everyone sees the situation differently. If we teach the life of our leaders, those who led us, they both got killed by people. They didn't die of natural causes. People are going to take it differently. Maybe if I go out there, I'm going to die the same way they went. Some people are going to say, oh, they tried to help, so I should pursue it. So it's kind of different. The way we are going to teach the people, that's how they are going to view the point.
I think we got to start wrapping up, folks.
Mr. Rosbrock, I also want to say one thing. I feel society is afraid to teach Malcolm X because they're afraid that they're going to radicalize kids. That's what they're afraid of. They're afraid they're going to radicalize kids.
Yeah, I agree with what he's saying.
When you say radicalize, what do you mean by that?
They're afraid that kids are going to get these ideas that, well, currently under the system we live on now, it doesn't benefit the working class, and it only benefits 1%. It doesn't benefit the working class and the lower class. They're afraid they're going to create more Fred Hamptons or Huey P. Newtons. They're afraid of change.
I think that I agree with that a lot, because I hear a lot of talk about how all these people are only in power for like the money, but it's like, do they really look at the people that are in power and be like, how are they making a change in our society? We had people disagree with having Obama and Michelle Obama, but as soon as he stepped down and they put Trump up, that's when they realized, like, oh damn, we done messed up a piece of the world. Like, and so I think they look at certain people and be like, well, that's just for the money. Nobody, he doesn't mean it or whatever. And I think we're so used to being let down that by certain politicians who say they're going to do certain things and they don't do nothing at all. They just sit back and watch. So I think to have people in office like Kamala Harris, and to have people that speak out and that pave new ways, gives those little kids and those other young adults that example that, like, I can do that. I can be that. I can change how people look at us. I can help be the face of the Black people. So I think, from my point of view, I applaud all the people in power of color.
I agree with what they were saying, and like I was trying to say before, that kind of coincides with the simple fact when he said to radicalize students. Like, I think that also goes with the fact why teachers won't really give us their political opinions or like try to tell us how they feel about certain subjects when we're in school, because they feel as though they're gonna corrupt children, or that's what society has made them seem like they're gonna corrupt the kids by giving them their own opinions. Like, if we try to have a political discussion, the teachers will cut it off, or we try to talk about certain subjects, then like the teachers will be like, oh no, let's not get into that because it's not in the curriculum and we're not supposed to really talk about that. But I feel like we should talk about that because it's a part of what's going on, and if we don't talk about it, then we're not going to be educated on it.
So I want you to think about something before we start wrapping up, and think about Malcolm X and all of this stuff. So somebody brought up the Boston mascot. I think it was Diamond. So the colonists, right? The colonists, and you know about these in school, the 13 colonies, the colonists, right? Did they do sit-ins in order to get independence from Britain? Did they have sit-ins?
They boycotted.
Marches? Huh?
Yes, they boycotted tea and everything, and it eventually all led up to the death of Crispus Attucks, who was the first Black man to die for this country and the first man to die for this country.
So that ended up being what, though?
The birth of our nation.
Right, but did that happen because people marched and sat in, or did they have a revolution?
Well, there's the whole story is that both sides were antagonizing each other. Right. Crispus Attucks was the one who came in and was like, yo, we trying to get freedom, not trying to attack people. Let's just let them be right now because they're not doing nothing to us. And when they started throwing those rocks and snowballs and everybody started shooting, I think he got caught up in the middle. And the fact that nobody acknowledges, like, I didn't know who Crispus Attucks was till I got up here. No, I never knew who that was. So the fact that people don't acknowledge that, it's kind of like, damn, well, history was a lie. Like, where's the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So yeah.
Well, I think honestly, in wrapping up, I think they underestimate if the students are like you. I think they underestimate what you guys have in your mind and what you can think and analyze. If they're courageous, if people are courageous enough to teach you that the colonies had a revolution, and they're not afraid that is going to radicalize you and make you go out and have a revolution for independence. If they can teach that in World War I and II and Vietnam and all this other stuff, just seems to me that we should be able to give you everything that actually took place and give you the opportunity to think about it yourselves. And I think you're smart enough to make right and good decisions and healthy decisions for yourself. This discussion was very robust and fruitful, a very brilliant bunch of kids. And, I think many, many more kids are like you, whether they understand it or not. And the more information we give you, I think the better off all of us will be. So I appreciate you guys for, entertaining me this morning, engaging with me, being a part of this book club. It makes me feel good to be a part of this city. I know that Miss Richardson will get on and take us to the next part, but I appreciate this discussion. Definitely help me out as well.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mayor Baraka.
Yeah.
So I didn't see any questions in the chat. If any student who is not a part of the panel who is listening in, and I want to emphasize student, if there are any students who have questions they'd like to put on the floor, please take this opportunity right now to put your questions in the chat. And while you are doing that, and please do it immediately if you wish to do it, I'm going to talk a little bit about, well, two things. One, I think that, thank you all for engaging in this conversation. Thank you, Mayor Baraka. What I was thinking about while you guys were talking is, students, I want to give you a little assignment. I would like to ask you to please find a speech by Ossie Davis. It is Malcolm X's eulogy. The title of it is Our Shining Black Prince. Our Shining Black Prince, Malcolm X's eulogy, delivered by Ossie Davis. And I think that you will find a lot of insight in that particular piece. So and so much more. Obviously, this conversation could go on for hours. But thank you, young people, for your depth and for your brilliance in this conversation. So right now, I want to talk about our next book and let everyone know what the next book selection is for the Mayor's Book Club. I'm going to hold the book up here. It is When They Call You a Terrorist, a story of Black Lives Matters, okay, and the power to change the world, by Patrice Khan Colliers and Asha Bandile, with the foreword by Angela Davis. And I know that's a name that you are either familiar with or you have heard before. BLM, Black means Black Lives Matters. Long time ago, when I was your age, BLM meant Black Liberation Movement. So it's really interesting to me that BLM, that acronym has survived and has new meaning now in this generation, but in a way the same meaning. So this book, When They Call You a Terrorist, this is the young adult version. And we chose the young adult version because it is not only the text of the book, but, and I know you can't see it that well, but I can't help showing it kind of to you. It has all kinds of side notes in it. You see little stuff scribbled there on the side. It has all kinds of, it has photographs in it, of the author. And I'm not going to really say too much about it, except to say that it is a must read, probably for everybody in the United States, but you guys will have the opportunity to go to the Newark Public Library, to any library branch or the main library downtown. Just ask for the book. You can say, I'd like the Mayor's Book Club selection, or you can say, I want the book When They Call You a Terrorist, and that book, that hard copy book, will be yours for free starting on Monday. Starting on Monday, which I believe will be the 22nd of February. In addition to that, the ninth graders in the North Public Schools will get a free download of that book for all ninth graders. And those of you who have Audible accounts, you may have the opportunity to download it onto your account also. And Mayor Baraka, I know this book that we're now going to engage in, When They Call You a Terrorist, when we first started the Mayor's Book Club, this book was one that you were really interested in, and it wasn't available. It was out of print, and now with all of the politics of the last year, it became available again. So I'm wondering if there's anything that you would like to say again about that book and why that book is important now.
Yeah, I think, it's almost like all of the things that the young people were saying about what they thought about Malcolm X, how the world saw him and how they're being taught about him as being violent and all these things. And they had an epiphany in reading this book and beginning to understand the complexities of this individual, of this human being, that he was a human being affected by the world and society, and he changed like you. Your ideas change, you develop, you grow, and the impact that he had. And so this whole idea of people calling you a terrorist because you love yourself and want to represent who you are and so forth and so on, and just the evolution of how Black Lives Matter started in the minds of these young ladies, and how they started a huge national, now international movement, just based on their desire to have their voice heard. And I think it's important. And I think it resonates with all nationalities, actually, and that everybody should really read this and get it, because it looks at people, not only how they look at themselves, but how other people look at them. And you begin to change the minds of other people who begin to see you one way, the way you saw Malcolm one way. And you begin to see him as a round figure and not as a flat one. So I appreciate that. And that's the importance of it. It's the importance of it, because nobody is, written like the stuff people say about you, and that is not you. There's a lot of things people don't know that make you the person you are, and experiences that you went through, and why you do the things you do. So it's important. It'll help us understand each other better. So
I definitely agree with that because, well, being that I grew up in a different space than here, I had my first racist encounter when I was in 4th grade. I was told by other students that I couldn't play on the monkey bars because I was too Black or whatever. So I feel like those things play a role in some of the people that we have today. Like in high school, before I moved up here, I got in trouble for wearing a Black Lives Matter shirt to school because I was offending people. That's what they told me. So those things play a part in how you look at the world and how you see it. And being that we had people across in Italy and in all types of countries sit there and hold up signs with George Floyd's name on it and didn't even know him, don't even know the country like that, is like, man, like we really are making an impact for people to stop, to look at us as a human being, to stop looking at us for color, stop looking at color, look at personalities, because some people have great personality. Look at brains, because there are some really smart African American and Latina kids who can really take here and like make you look at yourself like, damn, what am I learning? So we need to stop looking at it as just black and white. Look at it as we're humans, we're people of God.
that's a good way to end it. So I appreciate y'all. I got to do other things that is not as exciting as this. I appreciate you for brightening my day. That's for sure.
Hey, thank you. Yes. It's always good to stay connected with young people in each generation. So what we're going to do now in closing, I want to ask everyone to unmute, all of the panelists, everyone who is in the audience, who is I want you to unmute, and I want you to just give the mayor and all of the participants a loud round of applause. You can yell, you can clap. I hear some woo! Great program. Right. Thank you all. Thank you all so very much.
All right. Y'all our future.
All right.
Good job, young
guys. Bye-bye.
Great job.
Yes, great job.